Oh, there is no projector. I was ready to be blinded by the light, but thank you all for coming. You found your way over from east, and those of you in east get a little taste of what it's like for us in west to walk overhead every week. It's not that bad, but we got a good meeting lined up, a couple of great speeches, and I guess we don't have an invocation lined up. Would anyone like to drop in and on the spot give us some words of wisdom? Some stragglers. No? All right, we can move right on to the word of the day, and Gary will present that for us.
Today's word of the day, or week, since we only meet once a week, is propitious. Is an adjective meaning favorably disposed or tending to favor. I picked this word because I went on the website for Merriam-Webster's dictionary and it was the word of the day. There's no other reason for me to pick this word. But I will use it in a sentence. A time of high unemployment is not the most propitious time to start searching for a new job. So the challenge is try to use this word sometime today when you're up here on the stage.
Thank you, Gary. Next, I'd like to call on our general evaluator and Arlene introduce her team of evaluators and give a brief description of their roles.
My team is in this room. I don't know who you are. I don't have my I'm a horrible last minute general evaluator right now. Timer, Juan's on. He'll be timing the speeches, and anyone who does speak out loud, he'll be timing you for the most part. And there's 2 speeches, right? 2 evaluators will evaluate each of those speeches, and they will also come up in front and just give their general evaluation out loud and also in written form. And the counter will listen to your ahs and ums, and Sarah's the counter? Okay.
First time.
Okay, all right, first time. First time she might miss mine then.
Probably. When does it start?
Like right now.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah, 10 minutes ago. And at the very end, I'll just give a general evaluation of the entire meeting.
Thank you, Arlene. I'm going to steal my sheet
Oh,
back.
yeah, go ahead.
Got my notes on it. All right, we'll jump right into our speeches since we have 2 of them and are running just a hair behind schedule. Our first speaker, Chris Frank, has found a passion in performing arts, and along with writing his own productions, he also enjoys watching shows. And what better place to watch a show than at the Minnesota Fringe Festival? The Minnesota Fringe Festival is a performing arts festival held in Minneapolis every summer, featuring performing artists from many genres and disciplines. Minnesota Fringe is the 3rd largest fringe festival in North America, tallying nearly 900 performances of 169 shows in 2010, and that's over the course of 11 days, I think. In his 5th speech from the Competent Communicator Manual, Chris would like you to evaluate his body language as he presents 10 things you didn't know about the Minnesota Fringe Festival. Please welcome Chris Frank.
Mr. Toastmaster, today I'm going to talk about 10 things you didn't know about the Fringe. And I'm going to break it down into 3 different sections. The first section, we'll talk about what the Fringe is and what makes it different from other festivals you might be familiar with. In the second section, we're going to talk about the types of shows that you can find at the Fringe and nowhere else. And in the third section, we're going to talk about an interesting phenomenon in the Fringe, which is people who are famous in the fringe, but that you've never heard of anywhere else if you're not part of the fringe. So let's begin figuring out what the fringe is. The Minnesota Fringe Festival's claim to fame is it is the largest fringe festival in the United States. Now, Eric mentioned that it's the third largest in North America, but the other ones are in Canada. The largest one in the world is in Edinburgh. So we are even bigger than New York City's Fringe Festival, so we should be proud about that. It's a 10-day festival, usually the first week of August. This year it's August 4th through 14th, starts on a Thursday, ends on a Sunday. The numbers, 18 locations, 168 productions, 1,000 artists, and what makes it unique and fun and original and also sometimes boring is it's a non-juried festival, which means anyone can apply. Your script is not read or evaluated by anyone, so it could be boring, it could be great, it could be horrible, it could be offensive, it could be inappropriate. All that matters is if they drew your ping pong ball, you're in the festival. That being said, where is it and how do we take this thing in? It's in 18 locations simultaneously. Each show gets 5 performances over the course of the week, and it can have all kinds of different times. They have some sort of a mathematical equation, so you're going to get one horrible time slot at like 5:30 on a weekday, and another great time slot at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. So at any given moment, there's a show at every single one of these venues. So the question you have to ask yourself is, which venue and which show should I go to? Here are the ways that you figure that out. First of all, kiddies. On the Fringe website, audience members can rank shows by kiddies. 1 kiddie being bad, 5 kiddies being good. The problem with this method is some persons have a lot of friends that will give them 5 kiddies even though it's a bad show. I fall for this all the time, and I will fall for it again this year. That's why you have to rely also on the other methods for finding good shows. The Pioneer Press probably is the best of the newspaper and blogger media because they rank the shows accordingly to must-see, could be worse, and avoid like the plague. Very appropriate ratings for the Fringe Festival. Typically what I do is I'll catch a dozen or so shows. I'll see 2 or 3 that are amazing shows, and by the titles and descriptions you can never tell which one's going to be which. And I'll see 2 or 3 horrible shows, and the rest are worthwhile. So now that that's been said, we go into the second part, which is what kind of shows can you find at the Fringe that you won't find anywhere else? So just as in television and movies, we have genres such as crime and comedy and drama. In the Fringe Festival, we have very unique genres that you won't find anywhere else. The first genre I call something the musical, which is to say, something that should never be a musical is done as a musical. In the past, I've seen Jaws, the musical, Cannibal, the musical, and the meta comedy, Musical, the musical. So let's see what we have on tap this year for the genre of musical, something the musical. Whoops. This year we have Animal Farmville, A Friend Me, Like Me, Poke Me musical. Highlander, the musical. Those were the days, a tribute to television themes. This was my favorite one. Robot Lincoln, The Revengeance, the musical. And, of course, the must-see of the year, Yar, the Lusty Busty Pirate Musical. The next genre is the something Shakespeare genre, which is to take something that has nothing to do with Shakespeare and put it together with Shakespeare. Past shows have been Zombie Shakespeare, which speaks for itself, Kung Fu Hamlet, which was Hamlet done in the form of a Kung Fu movie, where the actors mouthed the words and someone off screen read the words. There was one other great Shakespeare one, Corleone, the Godfather, done in the form of Shakespeare's iambic pentameter. So let's see what we have on tap this year for the something Shakespeare genre. Luke, Star Wars and Shakespeare together. Macbeth, the video game remix, and Shakespeare Exposed, the history monologues. And now our last genre for the Fringe that we're going to talk about today is the something Minnesota genre. Basically anything to do with Lutherans or Minnesota accents, something of that nature. What do we have on tap this year for the Minnesota genre, which I also call the something Minnesota or Iowa or North Dakota genre? Minnesota Middle Finger. Uptown, the musical, putting a Minnesota genre and musical genre together. That's brilliance for the Fringe. Rennie Decker, Rise and Fall of the Boat King. So those are a few of our genres that you can find at the Fringe, amongst the many other shows. Part 3, Fringe Famous. These are the people that always have sellout crowds and are huge in the Fringe Festival, but you probably never heard of them outside of the Fringe Festival. The first and biggest name in the Fringe is always the Scrimshaw Brothers. They've done a number of shows. They always will have a packed crowd of 300 or 400 people. Joseph Scrimshaw is the one on the left, far left, in the left photo. He's this year doing a show called Brain Fighters, which is a children's show. On the left, his brother Joshua Scrimshaw is doing the Smothers Brothers Grimm. The next Fringe Famous is Mike Fotis. Now, where the Scrimshaw brothers do what you would expect in a play, Mike Fotis literally writes down stories, sits at a table, and reads them, while someone behind him plays bass guitar. It sounds horrible, but it is an amazing show. He does new stories every year. And he's always the one in the dingy theater in some sketchy part of town, which makes it feel super fringy. He's also in another one called Once Upon a Time in the Suburbs, which is a Western that takes place in the suburbs and involves comedy. And the last Fringe Famous, this is the only person you may have seen but not be aware of it, Mike Rylander. In the Super Bowl, not this year but the one before, the Super Bowl where the Vikings should have been in it and would have won, Mike Rylander was in the most watched commercial in history. It was called The Nacho Samurai. Here he gets hit by the nacho from the Nacho Samurai. Actual commercial during the Super Bowl, most viewed commercial ever in history. But you probably don't know who he is. Anyways, he's in this year's Hamluke. After Hamluke and the completion of the Fringe Festival, Mike Rylander is moving to Hollywood to try to make it famous for real. Which brings me to thing number 9. The Fringe Festival, it's not for everyone. I can understand people don't want to go to a sweaty theater that might not be air conditioned and possibly see a bad show. But I also understand that some people think that's a fun and exciting thing, which I do. And if anyone's interested, you can find more information at thefringefestival.org. And again, it starts August 4th through August 14th. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, 5 kittens for your speech today. Alright, we'll take just a few moments to gather our thoughts and put them down on the speech evaluations.
Can you have the evaluator read the objectives for that speech too, so we know?
Yeah, who's my evaluator? You are. Body body speak section.
Well, the objectives were to use gestures to indicate size, scope, contrast, and to use eye contact, facial expressions in an effective manner.
How much are tickets? How does that work? You pay per show? Or?
Yeah, so tickets, you can get punch passes, which end up being about $10 per ticket, and then you also have to purchase one button, which is $4. But if you buy a single ticket, it's $12, I think. So the artists get a percent of what they're bringing in, so there's like the incentive. That's why there's the incentive to have the great genre.
Nice. So what are you doing this year?
I didn't do it this year. I was in it last year, and I can only do it every other year. Otherwise, it's all I'm doing. It's stressful.
It looks like most people are still writing, so